Hello everyone, it's just a quick sound test. We'll start in Hello everyone and welcome to our 9189 Level 3 Diploma in Plumbing and Domestic Heating webinar. Today's host will be myself, David Pye, Rob Malander and Celine Bijram. Before we start, I'd like to explain a few things about the webinar platform. All viewers will be in listen-only mode, which should stop any unnecessary background noise. However, to engage with the webinar, please use the on-screen panel to ask questions. Please feel free to type your questions throughout the webinar, and we will take a few moments at the end to collate before responding. Now let's have a look at today's agenda. Firstly, we'll start with an overview of the apprenticeship. Then we'll move on to the overview of the on-programme, which is the Level 3 Diploma in Plumbing and Domestic Heating Qualification. Then we'll talk about some of the delivery requirements, the support material, and then hopefully we'll have time to answer all of your questions. Section 1, an overview of the apprenticeship. We thought it may be helpful at this stage to mention the funding available for the current frameworks. The current frameworks, plumbing and heating, the funding is available and the framework is open until the 31st of July 2020. So after this webinar, if you're considering your curriculum planning, you may be able to factor this in. Okay, let's have a look at an overview of the apprenticeship. This snip is taken from the IFA website. This is the Plumbing and Domestic Heating Technician Apprenticeship Standard. On the left-hand side, you can see an overview of the role, the details of the standard, which include the generic job titles, the occupational profile, and goes on to talk about the behaviours within this apprenticeship standard. On the right-hand side, you can see the level, which in this case is Level 3 only, a typical duration, which is 4 years, the maximum funding, the trailblazer contact, a list of the employers, and further down the screen you will see a link to the full assessment plan. We'll have a look in a bit more detail what's in that assessment plan on the following slides. Overview of the apprenticeship. This is a snip taken from that assessment plan and talks about the Level 3 Plumbing and Domestic Heating Qualification. Let's have a look on the right hand side. At the top there you can see on-programme knowledge assessments. We're already familiar with these through our Evolve platform. It goes on to talk about the on-programme simulated performance assessments. We're familiar with these from our current logbooks and task manuals. And then further goes on to talk about the on-programme work-based performance assessments. Again, we're already familiar with these from our on-site logbooks. On successful completion of all those assessments, the learner will complete and achieve the full Level 3 qualification. That qualification, along with the behaviours, the Level 2 in Maths and English, will meet the requirements of the Gateway. A learner meeting the requirements of the Gateway can then go on to take the endpoint assessment. This presentation and webinar will discuss the on-programme qualification. We will cover endpoint assessment on a future webinar. Section 2, an overview of the on-programme 9189 Level 3 Diploma in Plumbing and Domestic Heating. This first slide shows us a list of some of the core units. No doubt you'll be very familiar with these types of units and these titles if you're currently running the 689 Level 2 and Level 3. So it has a health and safety, processes, science, planning and supervision, and then the systems. One thing to note is previously we would have content in Level 2 core water, content in Level 3 core water. Now we only have one core water unit, but it will include content from the previous Level 2 and Level 3 programs. Here we have some further units. Environmental and domestic fuel have been added to the core to give all learners, despite the pathway they choose, information and training on the core principles of those technologies. It will also help them if they go down one of those pathways because they have some base knowledge and understanding to build on. You can also see that we still have electrical work and the control of plumbing and domestic heating systems, and Unit 313 is the install, commission, service and maintain domestic plumbing and heating systems, referring to our performance on-site evidence. Let's have a look at how we will deliver and assess this qualification. It was important in the development to get the balance suitable for the new apprenticeships, and we considered the fact that Level 2 and Level 3 have come together and that there is now an EPA after successful completion of the 9189 qualification. Therefore, it is broken down into 4 phases. We will have a closer look at the details on the following slides. This slide shows you the content to be delivered in Phase 1, which is expected to take an academic year to deliver. If you have a look at the screen, it shows you the titles of the units we're delivering in Phase 1. So we have health and safety and common plumbing processes. We'll be delivering all the learning outcomes for those units. It moves on to scientific principles, planning and supervision, and then we have the systems. But you notice not all of the learning outcomes will be delivered against those units. So it is the type of information we would expect to be delivered to a Year 1 learner. Now let's have a look at the assessments associated with Phase 1. We have the health and safety, which is standalone, and that is assessed through a 20-question multiple choice evolve exam. It's expected that you can book learners onto this exam from the 11th of March this year. The rest of the content you've delivered in Phase 1 will be assessed near the end of the academic year in a 40-question closed book multiple choice evolve exam. Again, we expect this to be available for you to book learners on from the 11th of March this year. The practical side of this phase will be assessed on health and safety and common plumbing processes. That's around a 10 to 12 hour practical assessment. Let's expect it to be available from around the 1st of the 4th this year. To support tutors and learners in preparing for those phase assessments, we have sample assessments. These are available already on our 9189 webpage. It gives you and the learner an idea of the type of question that may come up in each phase of the assessment. Let's have a look at Phase 1 practical assessment. Currently, learners will complete a series of tasks which include numerous frames. Phased assessment sees a reduction in the amount of assessment activities, although we recommend learners still complete basic frames as part of their skills development. With this being a phased assessment, it includes all material types, bends and jointing methods in a single but larger assessment. This slide shows you the content to be delivered in Phase 2, which again is expected to take an academic year to deliver. This time we have scientific principles again, but it's the other learning outcomes that you will be delivering. Then we have the systems again, but we must pay particular attention again to the learning outcomes. The Qualification Handbook has a list of all units and content against all the learning outcomes, so it's very clear what content you are delivering in each phase. This slide shows us how we will assess Phase 2. Again, just like Phase 1, we have a single assessment Evolve exam. That will cover the units on the screen, but the learning outcomes that we have delivered in Phase 2. That will be a 50-question multiple choice closed book Evolve exam. And again, that is expected that you can book learners onto that from 11th of March this year. The practical side of this phase will cover cold, hot, central heating and rainwater systems. That's around a 16 to 18 hour assessment. This will be available on the Sitting Guild's website, and again, the expected availability date is the 1st to the 4th this year. This slide shows you some examples of the assessment within Phase 2. It's split between some of the practical activities, very similar to what we expect a Level 2 learner to do at the moment. You can see that on the right hand side of the screen. We've got left and right handed WCs and basins. On the left hand side of the screen you can see a method statement, so we have pro formas already created for the learner in the pack, and they complete their own method statements on this documentation. Okay, let's move into Phase 3. This will see you deliver the rest of the core content for all the core units. So we see a repeat again of many of the systems, but again, they're against different learning outcomes within that unit. So it's just parts of the cold water, hot water, central heating, rainwater and sanitary systems, but all of the environmental technology, domestic fuel systems and the electrical work. Phased assessment for Phase 3 will be slightly different than the other two phases. Firstly, we do have a 20-question multiple choice Evolve exam expected around summer this year to cover those three units: environmental technology, domestic fuel and the electrical work. The rest of the assessment for Phase 3 will be through an assignment, which is split between a desk-based design assessment and a practical assessment. This assignment will cover the rest of the units. So that will be cold, hot, central heating, rainwater and sanitary systems and the electrical work. This is around 12 hours in total and is expected to be available around summer 2019. However, to reduce the amount of assessment, we will have different routes available. Here are two on the screen. You will share out the routes evenly across the learners. If we have a look at Route A, the learner will design a cold water system, commission a sanitation system, maintain a central heating system, and then all learners, regardless of route, will install an S-plan, carry out electrical wiring and electrical fault identification. Whereas a learner on Route B will maintain the cold water system, design a hot water system, commission a central heating system, and then again install an S-plan plus, electrical wiring and electrical fault identification. It is worth noting as a reminder before we progress that all apprentices will have to take an endpoint assessment, and this contains a full design assessment. So it's important they cover all aspects of design and commissioning during the training to help them prepare for the endpoint assessment. Now on to on-site assessment. There are 6 unique on-site assessments during the core of the qualification. These will be 6 individual visits to site. Observation 1 will be a first fix installation of a significant amount of pipework and associated fixings and fittings, as will be observation 2, so we can be sure that the candidate through direct observation has these skills. Observation 3 and 4 will then look at the second fix, which will be a complete installation of at least 2 major components. Observation 5 and 6 are similar to what we know at the moment at level 3, which is a complete commissioning of 2 system types. And again, this will be carried out on 2 occasions. Health and safety will be assessed holistically as part of all observations. As with our previous MVQs, we've created a logbook to support the gathering of on-site evidence. On this snip, you can see on the left-hand side different types of pipework. And the requirement from the qualification is a learner throughout the direct observations and the gathering of evidence must fit and position at least 3 of those types. As you carry out your on-site assessment, or the learner brings in some evidence from site, you will reference that. And in this checklist, you put the reference number in and countersign it. Therefore, at the completion of the full logbook, we can then check to see if the minimum requirements have been met. The learner may install 4 or 5. As long as they have 3, they've met the requirements for this part of the portfolio. If they've only installed 2, they can do additional assessments to bring up the range. This slide shows us the components and appliances. You can see on the left-hand side a long list of components and appliances, and the learner must do at least 6 of these. So again, just like before, you're working through the assessments, you're carrying out their observations. Whenever the learner is installing these components, we just reference it. So at the end, when we're collating all the evidence, we can do a quick reference to see if the learner has met the 6 component types required. On this slide, we can see a range of jointing methods and techniques required across the installations. A learner must complete at least 4 of these. So you can see compression, push fit, soldered, crimped, and so on. And again, we use this to reference when the learner has completed that part of the assessment, and the assessor can sign next to it. This slide shows us fault finding. The fault finding range is split to allow progression. This is the second range, which was the old level 3. It is important throughout the fault finding activities that the learner completes at least 3. And when they've done these 3, on each occasion they must carry out a diagnostic check, a decommission, a fault repair, and a component replacement as part of that fault finding.
Thanks, Dave. So now we're going to have a look at phase 4. Phase 4 being the chosen pathway the relevant candidate will undertake. So in phase 4, we've got 4 options. An environmental pathway, which includes air source heat pumps, rainwater, grey water reuse systems, and solar thermal hot water systems, natural gas, oil, and solid fuel. So at this stage, one of those 4 options will have to be chosen. So we'll have a look at how each of the 4 phase 4 pathways are assessed. So for the environmental pathway, we've got in-centre practical assignments, and then for each pathway there's a portfolio evidence. In most pathways it's called a work log. So they've got on-site evidence required for each of the 4 pathways. So in the gas, again, we'll be using the Blue Flame ICEs and question papers for the in-centre practical assessment and knowledge assessment. And there again, there's a work log where from site the candidate will need to complete the relevant required evidence. So for the oil and solid fuel pathways, slightly different format for assessment. In both these pathways, the in-centre assessments are carried out in either an off-tech centre for oil or an approved HETAS centre for solid fuel. So the centre who's delivering the core plumbing training programme may do some of the in-centre training, and they may even facilitate the on-site work log, the on-site portfolio. but they'll have to actually attend an off-tech centre for the oil pathway and a HETAS centre for the solid fuel pathway to carry out those assessments. So they're actually going to attend the formal centre for either off-tech or HETAS, bring that certificate back into the plumbing centre where that will be claimed. The unit will then, be claimed via a proxy number on Wall Garden. So a slightly different change of process there. Okay, so now the table on this slide actually shows you what the candidate will be recognised in regards to competent person schemes. So for each of the 4 pathways, they don't have to go out and take any extra assessments. The qualification is recognised for registration. So for the environmental, they can register with an MCS competent person scheme for solar thermal or heat pumps. If they've done natural gas, they'll get the core and the boilers water heaters, CCM 1 cent watt. And then in the oil and solid fuel table there, it's listed what they'll be recognised for and what they'll be able to join competent person schemes to be able to install the relevant appliances in oil and solid fuel. So with regards to the direct observation requirements and on-site evidence requirements for the pathway units, there is direct observation required. Observation 1 is generally install the appliance. Observation 2 is test and commission the appliance. Generally could be linked with observation 1 if they install in and test and commission on the same day. And then they have to be observed carrying out a service. So the requirements are the same for any of the 4 pathways. What we've actually done, the Appendix F requirements stipulated by EU skills for the gas, which are install, test and commission and service, we've then mirrored those for all the pathways. So no matter whether they do the environmental pathway, oil, solid fuel or gas, they will have the same on-site evidence requirements. A slight change in the assessor requirements for that pathway. If you as a centre haven't got the requirements for sending out an on-site assessor for the pathway units, you can now train up and get an expert witness from site to actually complete the direct observation paperwork for it then to be brought into the centre to be assessed. So again, that's been brought in the Appendix F requirements and is mirrored across all pathways. So they still have to be observed by an assessor for the core pathways. Let's not get that confused with the core. But for the pathway units where they might not have a, let's say, oil assessor within the centre, you could get somebody who's technically competent from the workplace to carry out the observation, fill in the observation paperwork, and then bring it into the centre to be assessed. And with regards to portfolio requirements, it's no different to what it is at the moment for the gas. Again, that's mirrored through all 4 pathways. You have to complete 5 installs. 3 of those must come from the workplace. 5 testing commissions, again, 3 from the workplace. 5 service jobs, 3 from the workplace. And 4 fault finding jobs, 3 from the workplace. So, as well as the 3 from the workplace, the other 2 could be carried out in a simulated environment to perhaps meet some of the range requirements which hadn't naturally been met within the on-site jobs, so the 3 jobs from the workplace.
Thank you. Now, the test specifications. What you'll find in the Qualification Handbook is a complete list of test specifications. This is really helpful for the tutor and the learner, as it will state each of the learning outcomes and the number of questions against each of those learning outcomes. This is really helpful when you're looking to prepare a learner for assessment, when you're looking to carry out some reinforcement and extra training and revision before the learner goes in for that assessment. So please have a look at the Qualification Handbook and have a look at the test specifications to give you a guide of the amount of questions in each area for each phase. Section 3, Delivery Requirements. Resits and retakes. The following must be applied to the phased assessment of this qualification. Candidates who fail an assessment are permitted 1 resit within 14 days. Candidates who fail a resit are permitted to take a retake of the assessment after 60 days. Candidates who fail a retake are permitted one final resit within 14 days. So that is 4 occasions in total. Candidates awaiting the outcome of their 4th attempt at an assessment may commence training for the next phase. But if the 4th attempt results in a fail, the candidate must repeat the training for that phase before taking the assessment again. Assessor requirements. Assessors must have AQA or A1-D32 that are updated and continue to practice to lease standards and possess CPD evidence of personally maintaining lease standards, or have other suitable equivalent assessor qualifications endorsed by sitting guilds. Assessor occupational competence for the core. A relevant level 3 plumbing qualification which is deemed to be the MBQ level 3 in plumbing and heating. It is possible that assessors may have the previous sitting guilds advanced craft certificates, in which case they'll need to demonstrate that they've had CPD and have a thorough knowledge of the qualification standards and requirements. If other MES-related MBQ or SVQ qualifications are held, and this is limited to the domestic gas, the wet central heating route only, or heating and ventilation installation, the domestic route only, or a domestic heating qualification, the assessor must be able to evidence plumbing competence through CPD activity. It is recommended that if there's an assessor who requires the CPD, that they take the units associated from the 629 or an equivalent. In addition, an up-to-date CPD record, a CV including industry experience, and a thorough knowledge and understanding of the qualification standards and requirements. Assessor requirements for Unit 312 electrical work. The person responsible for assessing Unit 312 must be competent in the technical area of that unit. This means that assessors must have an MBQ in the technical area and/or relevant up-to-date CPD qualification. An assessor without this evidence of competence must engage a qualified electrician to directly observe all critical safety aspects of the assessment. So it may be that there's a suitably qualified level 3 plumbing assessor carrying out the assessment for the phase 3 practical assessment. If they don't have the relevant electrical expertise or training or CPD, they can engage with a fully qualified electrician to help support with the safety critical aspects of the electrical work. On completion, the plumbing assessor will sign it and it will be countersigned by the electrician. Assessor occupational competence for the pathways environmental, oil and solid fuel. Assessors for these pathways must be occupational competent, experienced and hold relevant MBQs or other qualifications, or CPD relating to the technical area they are assessing. Evidence required prior to assessing is a qualification in the technical area, verifiable CV, current registration with an appropriate professional body to demonstrate competence to act as an assessor for the specific occupational pathway. This is not an exhaustive list. Assessors may provide additional evidence. Assessor occupational competence for the natural gas pathway. The Centre must nominate all assessors to sitting guilds for prior approval for them to conduct any assessments. The requirements for assessors on the natural gas pathway are taken from the previous EU skills guidance, and you can see on the screen a list of suitable qualifications such as SQAs, MBQs, level 3 diploma in gas utilisation and so on. Please see the handbook for further details. IQA requirements. IQAs must hold or be working towards TAQA B1-34 updated. The working towards IQA should be mentored by and have his or her judgments and decisions countersigned by a qualified IQA. IQA occupational competence for the core, environmental, oil and solid fuel. For the purposes of this qualification, occupational competence will be deemed to have been demonstrated by the verifiable evidence of one of the following: a level 3 MVQ in plumbing, a related building services qualification with proven technical expertise, or a related building services qualification with access to plumbing technical expertise when undertaking IQA activities. For the gas pathway, it's the same as for a gas assessor plus a relevant IQA qualification. Approval requirements. Centres approved to offer the 689 MVQ diploma in plumbing and domestic heating and have been active for the last 2 years will be granted automatic approval for registration only. An EQA visit will be required prior to any certification. Inactive centres approved to offer 6189 may seek approval using a fast-track approval form, and this is available for 12 months from the launch of the qualification. New centres will need to gain both centre and qualification approval. Please refer to the centre manual, the Supporting Customer Excellence, for further information. Now on 89 facilities and resources. There will be no significant workshop changes from the current level 2 and 3 689. Updated reconfiguration may be required dependent on current setups. Gas requirements are based on the same assessments as currently, so again, we don't envisage any significant changes. Centres offering solid fuel, oil, will require to meet heat gas and offset requirements. Environmental will be similar to current pathways on the 689 and the previous 2399 qualifications. This is to be confirmed. Exemption from level 2. This is the MVQ only, what we typically call RPL. A learner with a level 2 MVQ 689 or equivalent, there is a 5-year rule to all qualifications. Learners applying for exemption into the level 3 plumbing and heating standard qualification must apply a suitable certificate no older than 5 years old at the time of registration. Suitable learners are exempt from the health and safety multiple choice, phase 1 multiple choice, phase 1 practical, the cloakroom part of phase 2 practical, and some of the performance evidence from on-site. Just direct observations 1 to 4, and again this is MVQ only. This means that learners must complete phase update training, phase 2 multiple choice, phase 2 unvented practical assignments, and then progress to phase 3. Section 4, support material. The Apprenticeship Training Manual. We've spoken throughout this presentation around the phased assessment approach. Before, when we delivered QCF units, we delivered a unit and then we assessed that unit and the learner could progress onto the next one. This gave a very bite-sized chunk to assessment. Where now we're moving to a phased assessment approach. So how are we going to get learners from the start of a phase, prepare them for the assessment at the end of that phase? We've created this Apprenticeship Training Manual to support that learning. It's predominantly based on workshop activities, starting from very, very basic activities for a new learner, progressing them all the way through the phases, and there's frames, different types of frames to help them prepare for that phase assessment, but all the way to more complex, more desk-based activities such as heat loss calculations and all the design aspects. There's even some stretch and challenge activities for your more gifted learners. We also have brand new Sitting Gills textbooks to support teaching and learning. As you can see from the screen, there's some nice screenshots of the information in these textbooks. There will be 2 books, typically year 1 and year 2, and typically year 3 and year 4. This will support the apprenticeship and any full-time education you may be delivering. Book 1 is due in spring 2019, and full smart screen will support the 9189, and the full package is hopefully ready around summer 2019. If you're looking at the gas engineering qualification and the new plumbing and domestic heating gas pathway, you may require some additional support if you're looking to use Blue Flame paperwork. If you wish to follow that up and get more information on the Blue Flame assessment paperwork associated with these qualifications, we have on this slide show direct phone numbers and email addresses for Andy Derber and Richard Payne, who can support you with that assessment material. Please, after today, if this is what you'd like to follow up, contact them directly on these email addresses. We will share this presentation with you following this webinar. So, thank you very much for listening to this webinar and this presentation. Just a couple of things before we finish and start looking at the questions. Do you know who your Sitting Gills business manager is? Or do you work with direct sales when you're at Sitting Gills? If you're unsure, please contact us directly. We've left the email address for direct sales there. If you're interested in any of the training manuals, textbooks, smart screen, or so on, please do contact your business manager and or direct sales. Have you been receiving our newsletters? They're all based on the landing page of our website. If you have signed up for email alerts, we'll send you a reminder to say that there's a new one on there. We create newsletters every 2 months. Do you use LinkedIn? We use LinkedIn quite a lot now to promote our new materials, our webinars, our networks. Please look us up and follow us on LinkedIn. And we will follow up this webinar with a copy of the presentation. So once again, thank you very much for listening. We have noticed there's quite a few questions come in. We're just going to pause for a couple of moments while we collate some of those questions, and then we'll come back on and we'll start to try and answer all of them. Thank you very much for your patience. If you have any more questions, please type them in now. We'll be back with you in a couple of minutes.
Hello everyone. One of the questions was, when will the funding for 6189 cease? So the apprenticeship funding, as we've been told by the Institute for Apprenticeships, will switch off in July 2020. The qualification itself will still remain open post that date, because we know some of the nations are still considering and are still using 6189 as a standalone qualification. There is also potential that there might still be some adult funding, but obviously in respect to funding, that's completely out of our hands, and that will be under the guise of the funding agencies operated by the government. So just to reiterate, July 2020 for apprenticeship funding, and post that date there might still be funding available, but we'll be sending out alerts and any updates that we receive to the delivery network.
Okay, thanks, Salim. Quite a few questions there. Will level 3 plumbing qualification be suitable for staff delivering the gas pathway? They will need to be gas qualified and suitable to deliver the gas side of the qualification. What if an apprentice works for a plumbing company that doesn't work on any fuels, for bathrooms and kitchens, for example? Yes, that's with this being a level 3 apprenticeship with a qualification with a mandatory pathway, unless they meet the requirements and evidence requirements for at least one of those pathways, it wouldn't be suitable for this apprenticeship. So in the future, your old previous level 2 learner who didn't meet any of the requirements of the pathway, this may not be a suitable alternative.
We've got another question around, will the knowledge test be open book or closed book? All the multiple choice tests are closed book. The design assignment, obviously, that you're going to use reference material, that will be open book. But just another note on knowledge tests, really. We have standardised with all awarding organisations things like the timing for tests, pass marks, test specifications. So, for instance, all the multiple choice knowledge tests are set at 60% pass. That's standardised across all awarding organisations, all got to have similar test specifications, to ask the same type of questions around the same topics, same timing for tests, same pass marks.
Thank you. Another question around the RPL and exemption around for 6035 learners. We have gone through that, and our expectation is it will be similar to 689, but without the on-site evidence, obviously. However, that requires the support of the full stakeholder group, which we're currently seeking. So we will have further news on that shortly.
So will the training packs be, how much will the training packs be? The training manuals are standard £30 across the organisation. So they can be purchased via the code on Wall Garden, or if you need any further information on purchasing packs and things like that, you can either contact our direct sales at cityandguilds.com, or if you want any info or signposting to how to purchase those, just drop us an email after the event.
Thanks, Rob. The textbooks are priced around £32. However, if you purchase them through the Wall Garden, there's a reduction built in. And again, as Rob says, if you're buying things in bulk and you're looking for a price for a large amount, please do come through your business manager or direct sales who'll support you with that purchase.
So we've got a question, will Offtech, I'll not sort of read the codes out, will Offtech equivalent solid fuels qualifications be accepted as an alternative to HETAS? What's been agreed by the awarding organisations is that we will be accepting HETAS qualifications for solid fuel and Offtech qualifications for oil. We do know other people do equivalent, but that's the agreement what's been made. We want to try and signpost learners to the specialists in these areas to deliver, and we feel that would be the best, the best requirement for that learner, and to give them the best opportunity to be trained in that specific oil or solid fuel pathway.
Thank you. Are ACS gas qualifications enough to deliver the gas pathway? Well, in terms of delivery, that would be down to the centre and provider to see that that member of staff is suitably qualified and experienced to teach. All our requirements in the handbooks relate to the assessor requirements, and if someone has all the related qualifications required for assessing on the gas, of which ACS may be an option, then they could be considered for that. But the best place to look is the qualification handbook. Does have a detail of who can assess it. It's the wording previously from EU skills, so there's no real change there. So there shouldn't be any shocks when you read that content.
We've got a query around guided learning hours and how the qualification should be structured. Obviously, you've got your 48 months apprenticeship. That would be then for the whole apprenticeship, including endpoint assessment. So these phases are going to have to be structured, and you're going to have to look at splitting your guided learning hours up into specific areas for delivery, really. So phase 1 might be through to from September, maybe through to Easter, and then you might do phase 2 from Easter to the following Christmas, and then phase 3 from Christmas maybe through to the following summer, July, August. Phase 4 then kicking off maybe September again through to maybe January, February, sort of third year. So it's up to yourselves really, dependent on delivery, whether it's block release, day release, how you split the qual up as always. But just be mindful the time frame is for the full apprenticeship, not just for the qualification. The qualification only gets you through the gateway. You've then got to go and have further training and come back for endpoint assessment. Endpoint assessment, you have to give a minimum of 2 months notice to book. So you've got to build that time frame into the completion of the apprenticeship.
Is the electricity for plumbers qualification acceptable for assessing the electrical unit? Quite possibly. We didn't list the qualifications because there are so many related qualifications. It's very difficult to list them. As long as it is relevant to what they're assessing against, and we can demonstrate that through a copy of that certificate and maybe some of the content within it, then yes, that would be deemed suitable, I suspect. I would always check with your own IQA initially. Have a look and have a check of the content that they're assessing against. If the assessor feels comfortable and the IQA supports that qualification, it's easier then for the EQA to support it as well. So I suspect the answer is yes.
So will the full-time qualification change? 6035 at the moment is our qualification. When the apprenticeship changed in other areas, for example, electrical, we did then amend the assessment to bring it more in line with the apprenticeship. But at the moment, 6035 is staying the same. We had a question on funding earlier. It's probably worth mentioning whether it's 7202, 6035, all our current programs are funded for September 19 for this academic year. So 6035, 8202, 7202, all fully funded as they are this year, and we see and facilitate no change in those at the moment. So that's just to mention the other programs and one of the questions. We've got another one there. Is MET 1 included in the core gas route? No. The only gas qualification alignment is from CCM1 and SEMWAT. And again, these decisions are not a City and Guilds decision. They've been standardised across all awarding organisations.
Yeah, so it's core plus boilers.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no current questions at the moment. We'll leave it just 30 seconds or so. We'll pause just while anyone maybe types out a few more questions, and then once we're satisfied we have answered everything, we will close. So yeah, if you've got any further questions, please type them out now. Just a couple more questions then. Yes, we will send out the slideshow. So following the end of this webinar, we will collate the slideshow and share this recording as well. Another question about the CSCS card. Are they exempt from the health and safety exam? No, they wouldn't be exempt from the 689 exam. There's some additional content in there on top of a CSCS. However, if a learner completes our 689 Evolve exam, they will have proof that they can demonstrate they've undertook training, and CSCS apprenticeship cards request that the learner demonstrates they've undertook some training in health and safety. So that will be accepted for a learner to apply for an apprenticeship card. Okay, well that's it for the questions now. We assume hopefully we've answered everything for you. If you do think of any other questions following this webinar, please don't hesitate to contact us directly, either at our personal email addresses or at buildingservices@sittingills.com. We would appreciate a couple of comments and feedback on the email on the screen. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like further webinars, please do share some of your thoughts. Please stay in touch with us. Rob and Tim have a couple of comments.
We will send everything out. We'll be sending the slides out and the recordings. So yes, we'll be sending that out as follow-up.
And obviously keep a lookout for the building services updates that we always send out, whether it be through our focus alert system or if you are a registered smart screen user as well.
So thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the webinar. We hope it's been useful and we look forward to working with you again in future.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.